Flip to Freedom, episode 28. Hello again, this is Sean Terry from the Flip to Freedom podcast, and we are on episode number 28. Now, if you are brand new and you're listening for the very first time, I'd like to welcome you and let you know that I am here to help you escape the 9-to-5 and live the lifestyle of your dreams by learning how you can make an absolute fortune flipping properties in your spare time, even if you're brand new, you have no cash, you have no credit, or you have never bought a house before. Now, the entire idea behind this podcast is to basically show you how to flip properties and get 1 year's worth of your income in the bank as fast as humanly possible. That would give you the option to quit your job and basically live a life of freedom. Think about it. Imagine if you didn't have to wake up and go to your job every day and deal with the boss and deal with the politics and deal with the traffic and have all that, and you could just wake up and do what you want to do. Well, that is the lifestyle of a real estate investor. It's a blast, and flipping properties is the first step to be able to do that. It's actually wholesaling properties, and that is by getting a property under contract at one price and then turn around and selling that contract for a higher price. You never actually take possession of the property. You're only basically just flipping the paper, and you do that by finding cash buyers that will purchase the property via the contract you flip to them. So now is the best time, obviously, in this market to find distressed deals. And I've actually, if you're brand new, I've actually have a podcast. I just recorded a podcast series and basically explaining exactly what you need to do to get started. And you can go back to episode 22 through 26. I go through a detailed step-by-step exactly what you need to do to get started in this business. And also, to go along with that, I wrote a 129-page comprehensive blueprint on 19 weeks, exactly how to quit your job in 19 weeks or less by getting 1 year's worth of income in the bank as fast as possible. Now, to get that book for free, you can visit flip2freedom.com. That's flip2freedom.com. There's a video of me on the front page. You can enter your email, and I will email you a special link that you can download that book for free. All right, in this episode, well, we've got an awesome episode for you. I have worked very hard to get you an interview with a gentleman that is extremely popular in the marketplace right now. He's been on webinars all over the place. He's been, just everywhere you turn, it seems like his name has been out there. So, and he has found a loophole, a secret loophole that nobody knows about, that he is just crushing it in real estate right now, using no money, no cash, no credit, no experience. And he is going to explain, his name's Joe McCall, and he is going to explain exactly what he's doing to rake in tens of thousands of dollars every single month in this business. Now, he gives some great nuggets. So you might want to break out some notes that you can write down, or just listen to it again. But he is a phenomenal gentleman. He has an incredible story that he literally was in a very, very tough situation. He bought a bunch of rental properties. Those rental properties, the market dropped, and he got in a negative cash flow situation, and he found himself literally just in a bad situation. Well, he started researching wholesaling, and he put it together with this little niche, the secret loophole that he'll tell you about. And just crushing it, literally completely turned his entire life around in a matter of months from just starting from scratch. And that's how easy this model that he has is, and how and he actually shares exactly a 5-step procedure that you can start today and implement it in your business. So he's an awesome, and he's very laid back. He has some great kids, and he's been fun to get to know over the past couple weeks here since I met him. So without further ado, I'd like to have Joe McCall come on the line, and then we will go through this interview, and I ask him some great questions about how he got started and what he did. So let's go to that right now. All right, now I got Joe McCall on the line, and I'm so excited to speak with him today. He's an extremely busy gentleman and very successful person in the real estate industry, and he has such a unique niche that I have been begging him to do a call with me, because I know people that listen to this podcast, they like the idea of being able to flip properties using no cash, no credit, and have no experience. And Joe and I happened to connect, and he actually happened to listen to one of my podcasts, and we actually happened to connect through that. And then just talking to him and him explaining what he does in this little, it's like a loophole in the market right now. If you look at the real estate and the news and everything's going on around of how bad everything is, but then you have, Joe McCall focusing on this tiny little niche that he's just blowing it up and doing unbelievably well. And it is like a little loophole. And so I'm excited to have him on the phone. Joe, how you doing today?
Good, Sean. Really good to talk to you, man.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's an exciting time to be in real estate right now. What Warren Buffett says when the what's his quote there? He goes,
buy when
the
people
market is
sell,
greedy,
or sell when people buy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I don't think in our generation we'll ever see a market like this again. And maybe we will. Who knows? The markets are going cycles. But what I'm doing right now at flipping lease options works especially well in a down market. And really, wholesaling in general, period, works really well in this market because there's a ton of motivated sellers out there right now.
Right.
And a lot of them don't have any equity.
Right.
And that's what I was. That's kind of what I kept on hitting my head against the wall with until I discovered this strategy.
Yeah, and I read your story, and your story is absolutely phenomenal. It's very actually funny, very similar to mine, to where I had a lot of rental properties. We sold majority of them, pretty much all of them in 2005, and made a ton of money doing it. But then we started accumulating some other rental properties. But when you have rental properties, there's pretty much two different paths. You can go down the whole rental property route, and you can get the $200 of cash flow, and you can manage the tenants. I mean, like today, there was a termite problem at one of our houses, so I had to call a termite guy and get the termite guy over there to get that done. So still managing issues like that, but. I read your story, and you kind of went down that path, and then what brought you over to wholesaling with lease option? How'd that all come in effect?
Well, I was in way over my head. When you were selling your homes in 2005, I was buying a bunch of homes, and I was buying them at the height of the market. I was counting on appreciation. You remember looking at those charts of 50 years, and real estate has never gone down. The average appreciation over the last 50 years is 8% a year. I remember reading that. And then seeing markets like Phoenix and Las Vegas and California, Florida screaming red hot. And I was just thinking, man, this is awesome. So I was buying homes at like 90 cents on the dollar and from the MLS without hardly any negotiating, and then hoping to sell them at 110, 120 cents on the dollar.
Right.
And I was buying them subject to the existing. I was also buying. I was doing this thing actually where I was finding the buyers first who had large deposits and letting them pick a house on the MLS, and then I would negotiate a little bit with the seller. But then I would buy the house, and with my down, I would use the tenant buyer's down payment as my down payment for the home, and I would cash flow $100 or $200, $300 a month on those homes. And I had a realtor doing all the work for me, which was nice.
Yeah.
But I was buying these homes at 90, 95 cents on the dollar. I couldn't, when you have the buyer pick the house first, you can't really negotiate much with the seller.
Right.
These sellers weren't super motivated. But then the market started going south, and my tenant buyers weren't buying homes, and I was, I bought about 8 homes using that strategy. And then I started getting a little smarter, and I started buying homes at bigger discounts. And so I started buying homes with more and more equity in them. But I had a serious cash flow problem. I was equity rich on these homes, but really cash poor.
Right.
And then the market fell apart. I became equity poor and cash poor. and I had a serious cash flow problem. And I had all these homes that I had taken over the existing mortgages to, and I knew I refused to get behind or miss a payment for these owners, so I was becoming late on my own mortgage payments, and I never missed an owner's mortgage payment on a house I bought subject to the existing mortgage.
Wow.
But I finally came to a point where I said, look, I had to give the homes back to the original owners. I deeded it back to them. I said, I can't do this anymore. And so I hit rock bottom. And then, I tell this in my story all the time.
Yeah.
Where my wife, probably the low point of my entire life was when my wife was at Target and going through the checkout line with all of her food, and the 3 kids are with her. And not the credit card, but the check card gets declined. And
she called you mad, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's everybody behind her, and the kids are fussing and crying, and the card gets declined. And then, like, a couple days later, she's in McDonald's, and the kids are hungry, and the check card again was declined at McDonald's, and the kids ask her, why are we leaving the food there? Like, we're hungry. And so, it really shook me, and it was a very difficult time in my life. And that's when I said, I got to do something
I think there's
different.
a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people that, can absolutely relate with that because, there are people that, same thing. You hit a point in your life and you're, and everything's going, and then you have something like this hit the global economy, and it kind of does a shift on you. And it almost, you got 2 paths to go down. You either can just fall apart, or be innovative like you were, and put together, an idea of lease options and wholesaling, which is brilliant.
Yeah. Well, my strategy is I've always loved lease options. And by the way, I'm sorry if my phone's beeping there. I've always loved options because it allows you to control property without owning it.
Right.
And I've always loved wholesaling because you can make a quick nickel versus a slow dime. And so I was. Right at this point, I had a serious cash flow problem, and I had too many properties, and so I said, I got to go back to the basics, foundational, fundamental, real estate investing 101. What is it? And almost every course I'd bought in the past, it said you got to learn wholesaling. You got to start with that because that's going to fill the cash flow needs. And so I bought a couple courses on wholesaling, and I started flipping homes and making good money at it. And actually, my first deal was a triplex. Way out on the sticks and way out in the country, and I wasn't interested at all. This lady was responding to a postcard I sent on an expired listing she had somewhere else, and she said, I don't want to sell that house. I want to sell this triplex way out here in the country. And I just told her, no, I'm not interested. Well, the funny thing is she actually called me like 3 or 4 times before I finally returned her call. Okay?
So that's a definition of a motivated seller.
Yes, it definitely is. And it was expired the year before for like $120,000, and I said, "I'm not interested." She said, "Please." She's like begging me to make her an offer, and so it expired the year before. I couldn't get any comps because there's no triplexes out there. There's hardly any multifamilies out there. So I just said, "You know what? The most I can offer is maybe 40." And she said, "Okay." And I was floored. And I thought, So I met her at a coffee shop or something. And I put every contingency I could in the contract. And I didn't even see the place yet.
Wow.
I put every contingency that I could think of in there, and she signed it all. And, I never even went inside. All 3 units were rented. And I just stuck a sign in the yard. And that day I got an all-cash offer for $55,000.
Wow.
And after closing costs and all that, I made a $13,000 profit.
Wow.
On this house. And that was my first deal, and I was so excited. I said, this is it. Super excited. Well, I started, I was still working full-time job, and I loved real estate investing. I was really torn because I was working so hard. I had my job was working 50, 60 hours a week, and then I had real estate full-time on the side, and then my family. So when I was at home, I wasn't really at home, and things were just kind of spiraling out of control.
Right.
And I was throwing away a bunch of leads. I was spending a bunch of money on marketing. I was spending about $3,000 to $5,000 a month on direct mail postcards. And I was getting so many leads, I couldn't handle them. I was throwing away a ton of leads because they didn't have any equity, or if they did, they weren't willing to share any of it with me. And I was so busy, I couldn't go meet the sellers in their homes because I didn't have time to do that. So I started thinking about, what can I do with these leads that don't have any equity, And so I thought, maybe I can wholesale lease options. That sounds pretty cool. And so I started telling investors, hey, I'll advertise your house for you for $500. If I find a tenant buyer, you pay me $500. And I got a few people that did that, and I started realizing that's a lot of work for only $500. So I started charging $1,000, and a few people would say yes. Most people said no, they weren't interested because I was only targeting investors.
Right.
And then my virtual assistant at the time was working in Indiana. He lived in Indiana, and she said, Joe, what you're doing is real similar to what this other guy that I'm working for is doing. You should give him a call because I think he's making a little bit more money than you are. I said, really? So I called him up, and he's flipping about 5 lease options a month in Atlanta, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But Sean, he's doing this from his beach condo in Florida.
Oh,
and he's making $5,000 on each flip. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that you could actually do that. And so
he's making $25 grand a month, right? But he's in Florida flipping houses in Atlanta. Okay.
Yeah, and he doesn't show the home. He never goes meets the sellers. He doesn't negotiate anything. And he does it all online.
Yep.
And I was just I said to myself, I got to figure out how he does this. So then over the next few months, I just kind of stumbling through it and figuring things out and making a lot of mistakes. Within about 3 or 4 months, my part-time income flipping lease options surpassed my full-time income at my job. And I had a great job. My background is civil engineering. I was working on a power plant in scheduling. And I liked the people I was working with, but I really, really wanted to work for myself. And this is why. And I really appreciate your emphasis on escaping the 9 to 5.
Right.
Because when you have a job, okay, I'm not blasting job, I'm not blasting work. Work is good. I believe in work. But when you're working for somebody else, no matter how hard you work, you get paid the same. And sometimes the harder you work, the more hard work you get. So if you're lucky, you work really hard. If you're lucky, at the end of the year, you may get a 3% raise. Okay?
Right.
And so many people now are worried about losing their jobs. And somebody said once, your ability, the only job security you have is your ability to make money. And so that really struck me because I was thinking, if I lost my job today, I could not survive. So I wanted to learn how to be able to live on my own and be self-sufficient. So I was making $75,000 a year at my full-time job. And then just doing part-time flipping lease options, I surpassed my full-time monthly income. And I thought, this is awesome. I can do this. And so I didn't save up. I really do still believe in what you teach about, saving up a year's salary in advance. But for me, I said, I could do this easy. I can replace my income. I already replaced my income. So I jumped ship about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago, and been doing it full-time ever since. But here's the cool thing, Sean.
What?
When I was working, I was forced to outsource everything I could to virtual assistants and to local realtors and to local other people. I had sales reps even that would go out and talk with sellers for me or call on sellers for me because I couldn't do it.
Right.
And so I just kept doing that actually when I left my job. So I instead of doing 2 deals a month like I was when I was working full time, I'm doing maybe 4 or 5 a month. But I'm still only working 20, 30 hours a week in the business. I literally outsource 80% of my work to virtual assistants in the Philippines and to local sales reps and realtors who help me sell the homes. And the other 10 or 20 hours a week, I work on teaching and coaching and the podcast and things like that.
So to bring it back full circle. So you went to this time where cards are being declined. You're in a tough position. You're at a job that you liked it, but you didn't really like it, and you kind of started dabbling in these this wholesaling stuff. You made $13,000. You flipped your lid. You're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And then now you come back, and now you are a leading expert in wholesaling lease options. You have a unbelievable coaching program. You have a site at wholesalingleaseoptions.com to where you have a course that I've actually got to view, which is extensive about this specific niche, which is great. and now you're pretty much all over the internet. You're doing conference calls and doing interviews and doing speaking engagements and teaching people, and so that is a lot has happened in a couple years from when you were working a job making $75,000 a year to where now you're flipping 4 or 5 houses a month, making 25,000 a month, only working 20 hours a week, and then now it's blown up to where you become a leading expert. And is that kind of surreal or what?
Well, the awesome thing about it is, and we were talking about this offline, is when you see your students having the same success. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to get more and more students now that are getting their first deal done and are so excited, or have been struggling for months to get started, and then all of a sudden the light bulb turns on and they say, "Oh, what? Marketing is important. I need to do some marketing," and they start doing marketing, whatever it is: yellow letters, postcards, cold calling, knocking on doors, whatever it is they decide to do. They just start doing it. And then they get so excited because it works. And that's the most fun is talking to students, seeing their checks, seeing their excitement when they get their first deal done and they make $5,000 or they make $3,000, or they get a seller that says, "Yes, I'm interested, send me more information." That's cool because people can see that this stuff really does work.
Okay, so let's talk about Let's talk about a recent deal. Do you have a recent deal that you've done here in the past 90 days or so?
Well, yeah.
I got
one that I'm thinking of is we actually found the buyer first for this house.
Okay.
And
now how did you find that buyer?
Well, we were advertising. We're advertising maybe a dozen other homes right now on our site, and so I guess he just found us from Craigslist. I think he found one of our other homes we were advertising, went to our website, and saw that we had a home finder program. And so we specialize, lease purchasing is my niche, rent to own. And we advertise, look, if we don't have a house you like, we'll find one for you. And
actually, that's pretty
he had
smart.
$10,000 to put down.
Right.
It's the same strategy you use when you find a cash buyer. You find out what area are you interested in, and you go out and start marketing for that area. Well, he had $10,000 to put down on a home. He made over $80,000 a year, and his wife also worked. His business, though, about 2 years ago, went into some severe financial. I think he had some contract with the government that was like 75% of his business, and the government just one day decided with some budget cuts, we can't work it anymore. They basically shut his business down. So he lost everything, went into bankruptcy and stuff. And but he was working now steadily for a year, but he has this ugly bankruptcy in his credit that he needs to be at least 2 or 3 years.
He can't get bank qualification. He cannot qualify.
Exactly. So. Right, but he doesn't want to rent a place and then in a year or two when his credit's fixed, move again when they're ready to buy a home.
Right.
So he contacted us and said, "Well, I want to join your home finder rent to own program." So we ran his application, sent it to our mortgage broker who reviewed it and said, "Yeah, this guy can maybe get a loan in a year or less, 6 to 12 months." So we told the guy, we did a background check on him, and then we said, "Tell us what areas you're interested in." And we actually made him go look for some homes. We told him, "Okay, go to all of the for rent by owner and for sale by owner ads you can find on Craigslist and Backpage and et cetera. Don't go to Realtor.com." We told him, "Just go to the for sale by owner homes."
Right.
And he brought us back about 5 homes that him and his wife liked. And the second one that I called the owners up and I said, "Hey, my name is Joe. I specialize in lease purchasing, and I have a tenant buyer who's interested in your house." And the owner was interested. So all I did was I signed a lease option contract with the seller, and I assigned it to my tenant buyer, and we kept
So basically, so let me recap here. So you had your buyer go out. He went to an area that he wants to buy in, I guess, or looked in an area where he wants to buy in, and he looked for all the for sale by owner, did all this stuff, And see, since he didn't have the wherewithal to do the right contracts and negotiate with and stuff like that, he basically said, here are some houses I would like in that particular area, and here's some of the owners. And then you called up with your expertise and negotiated with the for sale by owner, and you did a simple lease agreement, right? Just like a lease agreement, just a regular lease. Now, did you do that lease did you do it for what, 18 months?
I did this for 2 years.
So you did a 2-year lease on there, and then now with your purchase price, when you figured out your purchase contract, so the purchase contract pretty much went in line with your lease agreement, right? So that purchase contract was 2 years out?
Yes.
Okay. And then so your purchase contract was 2 years out, and then how did you determine a price?
Well, we just asked the seller, what do you want to walk away with?
Oh.
Because he had it listed, he actually had it listed with a realtor. And he said, well, if I sold this today, I would want to walk away with at least, I think, I'm just going to use that number, $200,000. And I think it was listed for $215 or something. And I said, well, okay, we can do that for you. And we told him we have a buyer who has $10,000 to put down. And he wanted to keep part of that as a security deposit.
Okay.
So I agreed to give him $4,000. We kept $6,000 of that $10,000.
Okay.
And so we bumped the price up the $6,000 for what we were making for our profit.
Okay.
And we also bumped the price up another $5,000 to cover buyers' closing costs when they get financing. So the buyer, when he gets ready to get a mortgage, will not have to come up with any more cash. So the buyer puts $10,000 down, and they're also going to get an additional $5,000 credited back to them as part to cover the closing costs when they get financing.
So you pretty much just added like seller concessions.
Yes.
So if you wanted to net 200, let's say theoretically you did it for what, 2, you did 6, you did 211 then, and then of which 5,000 was seller concession, 6,000 was your profit.
Correct, and the seller got what they wanted to walk away with, $200,000.
Right.
And the thing that we our big selling point for the sellers when we're talking to them is we have these buyers, we've already pre-screened them. This isn't a fishing expedition. We have buyers right now looking for homes in your neighborhood, and they're going to go into our credit repair program. We had a credit repair program for this guy. Mortgage broker's already working with him. We've already done a background check on him. We've verified his income. He's a clean background. We've called previous landlords, et cetera, et cetera. Would you be interested? If not, that's fine. We've got about 10 other people to call. So I let them, the fear of loss and the hope for the gain. You play on those things. And this seller was out of town. They were actually living in Virginia. And here's the thing I always ask sellers, too. Look, what are you going to do if you can't sell your house? Are you going to rent it? Well, why not rent it to somebody who wants to buy it instead of a tenant that's just going to trash it and call you every 2 weeks when the toilet's not working or whatever?
Right.
So he understood that and said, yeah, he doesn't have any other options. He doesn't have many other options because he knew he couldn't sell it traditionally. And so he said, okay, let's do it. Let's go for it. And
but this seller, he's asking $215, right? And it was listed on the MLS. Now, think about it. Most people are not going to offer list price. And I know in this market here where I'm at in Phoenix, we're talking about, offers coming in anywhere from 5 to 10% lower than the actual asking price just because it's a buyer's market. And also they ask for the seller concession. So this seller that you had on there for asking for $215, actually he's going to get net exactly what he wants, which is $200, which is probably more than he would net on just the open market anyway. So, so that's good for the buyer and good for the seller.
Oh yeah, he had an agreement in his listing agreement with his realtor that he could break the listing agreement if he found his own tenant. So it worked out really well that way. He doesn't have to pay any commissions. I know guys who actually go after and do direct mail marketing to listed properties directly to the owners. They're not licensed. There's no rules or laws that say you can't do that.
Right.
Obviously, if you are licensed, you can't market listed properties. But when these guys I know that do that, and I don't, by the way, I just don't because I find as many leads as I need on the internet for free. But
right.
But they will contact the owners and say, look, don't cancel your listing agreement. This is just another option. You can cancel my agreement anytime, but if you were interested, we'll lease purchase your home. When we find a qualified tenant buyer, we'll assign our contract to them. We keep the option deposit, and we're going to put the tenant buyer in a credit repair, and we're going to stick with them and follow. Make sure that they stick with the credit repair program through our mortgage broker. So it's not a sandwich lease option. You're not staying in the middle. Okay.
Right.
You make your money up front. There's zero. Well, you can never say there's zero risk.
Right.
There's very, very limited risk. I mean, in my option contract with the owner, I'm only putting down $10, and that's the most I have at risk.
And I think the interesting thing too is because if you really think about the opportunity of this is just phenomenal because in a typical wholesaling world, you're looking for cash buyers to buy wholesale properties or looking for rentals. So you're marketing for typically, cash buyers are going to do fix and flip, or you're marketing to buyers who are looking to hold on to rental properties. So, in those now there's a lot of them out there, but this pretty much gives you a third rung, a third avenue to market for retail buyers that have, in this type of situation, he made good income, he had a significant down payment, and he just didn't have the credit qualifications to buy another property. So, I mean, now if you think of the pool of potential buyers in that specific niche, I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's huge.
Yeah,
and I'm sure to find these particular buyers between Craigslist, Backpage, Kijiji, or even putting ads in a local newspaper, and driving them to a squeeze page or just picking up the phone or whatever, has got to be easy to find these people. I mean, because there's people looking for seller financing, isn't that right?
Well, yeah, there's tons of buyers out there looking for these kind of deals. Sometimes the challenge is finding somebody who has enough down payment.
Yeah.
But that's why I recommend when you're doing this business is to market for sellers and buyers at the same time. That's what I do. I do direct mail. I do. I just do cold calling, and that's something maybe we can talk about in a future call.
Yep.
How I do my marketing to find sellers, but I like the cheapest possible method, and so I find plenty of sellers. But at the same time, I'm marketing for buyers because for bandit sign, for instance. One of my students just put out 15 bandit signs a weekend ago and got over 125 calls.
No.
Okay, 125 calls on 15 bandit signs. All the sign said was rent to own, motivated seller, phone number. And he said, Joe, I can kick myself because I put my cell phone number on the sign. But you normally always put your voicemail on that sign. But anyway, he found 3 buyers from that little campaign that had over what did he say? $6,000 or $7,000 for down payment, and so he talked to those 3, and he didn't have anything in his current inventory that they liked, but he was working on finding them a home. All 3 were interested in having him help them find a home. So it's all about marketing. This entire business, whether you're wholesaling or short sales or rehabbing the fix and flip or whatever you're doing, it's all about marketing, and you've got to be a marketing machine. It's so easy. It's not intimidating, really, to do this business.
Yeah, and I think I like, I've done a lot of subject to deals, and I've done agreement for sale deals, and I've done actually a bunch of lease option deals. So, what I like about having this in your tool chest is that, when you approach a motivated seller, there are going to be some sellers that don't want to go through the subject to and actually deed the property and transfer the property. And then there's going to be others that don't really understand the whole concept of the agreement for sale, even though it's, it's pretty basic to understand of exactly what happens. But the other, then there's the lease option, which is very easy. It's a lease for a price and an option to buy for a price. Now, my one question to you is, which is something that concerns me about the lease option. How do you know that the seller is going to, or the seller doing this will actually collect the money, pay the mortgage, and not go out and get any other existing liens on the property? Well,
that's always tricky because that can happen in any situation, and unfortunately it happens all the time too, with just regular rental properties.
Yep.
I know a guy just recently, actually, out on the East Coast. He was telling me the story about somebody else. This tenant buyer put down $50,000.
Wow.
And gets a foreclosure notice, and finds out for the last 7 months the owner of the home, has never made a payment. And he's out of, Now, I think there is some federal law that passed recently that if a landlord loses their home to foreclosure, the tenant gets to stay in that home till the end of the lease, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. I've
Not
heard
to be
that too.
clear about that. But this guy, he's out. He's out of luck.
Right.
So that's heartbreaking, really, to hear those stories. And unfortunately, it happens all the time.
So you almost have to qualify the seller as well, right?
Yes, right. I do qualify this. I get the authorization to release information. I make sure they're current on their mortgage. Make sure they don't owe any back taxes. Run a preliminary quick title search. Make sure the title is not over encumbered. But here's the other thing: there are easy things you can do to protect the tenant buyers from those situations. You could, if you wanted to, record a memorandum of the option.
Yep.
Just record the agreement in the county records. Secondly, you could give the authorization to release information to the tenant buyer, which I strongly recommend. Give the tenant buyer an authorization to release information. That gives them permission to call the bank anytime just to make sure the mortgage is being paid.
Right.
And then third, there are third-party escrow companies that you can use that can make the payments to the bank for you.
Yeah, so they'll service pretty much service it. And
exactly.
I think that's what when I do the subject to, or even the agreement for sales, we have it to where we go through title, and we have the title company service it. So literally, the seller never even sees any payment. It literally just goes directly to the title company directly to the mortgage provider,
Yeah.
and then there's an audited statement every month for tax purposes. So
if you're a title company can do that, that's great. But there is a company, if you just Google Evergreen Note Servicing, I think they're out of Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Evergreen Note Servicing, they have a service where they'll do that for investors or for sellers, where they will actually withdraw the rent from the tenant's account, pay the mortgage bank, and then send the difference to whoever.
Cool.
So there are companies that will do that.
Right. And I know we're coming close to end of the time here, but for someone new, let's say someone's brand new, and they have no cash, they have no credit, they have no real experience in real estate, and they happen to trip across this podcast, and they go, what the heck is, Escape the 9 to 5, what's this Flip to Freedom, and who's this Joe McCall guy that we're doing an interview with here? So what would you tell that guy if he wanted to go out and he wanted to make a check here in 2 to 4 weeks, using lease options? What would you tell him? What would be the quick, I'd say, 5-step process for him to from where he is today to go out and get a check?
Yeah. Well, first you got to get educated. You got to learn. You got to know a little bit about what you're doing, obviously. But if you got a little education in your belt, and you're dangerous, it's real simple. You just pick up the phone and start calling sellers in Craigslist.
Huh.
Find sellers who have their houses listed for rent or for sale by owner, and say, "Hey, my name is Chuck. I saw your house in Craigslist. It looks really nice. I was wondering if it was available for lease purchase or rent to own," and just start the conversation from there. And if they say, "Well, yeah, I've thought about that. Tell me about what you do." You just explain in as few words as possible that you specialize in lease purchasing. You and your mortgage broker have a bunch of buyers on the verge of getting a mortgage looking for homes in that neighborhood. And there's no risk to you, Mr. Seller. You can cancel our agreement anytime. If you sell the house or rent it before we find a good tenant buyer, then you can just cancel our agreement. You won't owe us anything. And you get to approve the tenant buyer we find, and you stay in control. And you collect 100% of the rent every month. And I'm up front with the seller, and I tell them that we collect the option deposit from the tenant buyers, our fee. And we're just going to triple your marketing exposure. And we've got a bunch of buyers right now, and all you need to do is fill out this one-page contract. It's an option contract. Tell us what you need to walk away with. And then, so as soon as you get that option agreement from the seller, you start marketing the home. Get some pictures, create a postlet, stick it on Craigslist, all those different other free eBay classifieds, Backpage, advertise them all over the internet. Do bandit signs, start finding tenant buyers. When you find a tenant buyer that has, decent down payment, I usually ask for 2 to 3%. Get their application, have your mortgage broker pull their credit and tell you. You want to find a mortgage broker that can help people with bruised credit, and who maybe has a credit repair company or knows of someone who does, who can look at these applications and pull these credit reports and tell you, yeah, okay, they make good money, they can afford the mortgage. Mm-hmm. They just need to do this and this and this, and this is how long they think it will take if they do it. And so then you just basically assign your agreement that you originally did with the owner to the tenant buyer.
For whatever the agreeables, like in the case of this case study we just talked about, you gave 4 to the actual seller and you guys kept 6, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that sounds actually fairly. I mean, obviously there's complex steps in between there, but from from someone like me, used to be a Marine and not college educated, but this is fairly simple to follow. So step 1, you said basically you can call sellers through Craigslist, yes, or people that are for sale by owner, even driving around. If you see for sale by owner, you could call them, and that costs no marketing money, right? Just picking up the phone. Exactly. Then you would do, in step 2 would be an option agreement, to where it'd be a simple 1-page option agreement giving you the right to market the property. I'm sure it's non-exclusive.
Right.
And then step 3 would be market now. Now you have an option agreement giving you a controlling interest to market the property. Then you could now market the property to your potential buyers that you've already farmed, or you could stick it on Craigslist using Postlets or some other service, or just stick it on there for for sale with seller financing. And then you have people that call in off that. You would take a simple application. I'm sure you're looking for their credit, if they have employment verification, and more importantly, how much down payment they have. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then so that's step 4, and then you would get them qualified with your mortgage broker to see how long it would take them to actually be able to purchase a property. So if the mortgage broker says 2 years, then you'd write up the lease and option for about 2 years, and then you would assign the contract to who you're signing. So you're basically signing your contract with the seller over to the new buyer, correct? And that for that fee, is that correct?
Right. There's 2 different ways to do it. The easiest way, Sean, is you just actually will sign the lease and the sales contract with the closing date 2 years in the future. You sign that contract with the seller, which says in there that you're going to assign this to somebody else, and you're going to collect X amount of the option deposit for your own profit. And so then you just assign that to the tenant buyer when you find them. The other way to do it, I don't want to complicate it too much, but the other way I do it is I just sign a 1-page option agreement that gives me the right to lease option the property. Okay, when I find a qualified tenant buyer, I exercise my option with the owner. I will sign the lease option agreement with the tenant buyer, and then I will assign that agreement back to the owner, and then I'm out of the deal.
Right.
The reason I like that is because that 1-page option agreement, the sellers can just fill out on my website. They can download it, print it, fill it out, fax it back to me. Or I use DocuSign, and they can actually just fill it out online and sign it electronically online.
Yeah. And
that's all I need to get started. So I don't need to send them a big, long lease and a sales contract or anything like that. There's different ways to do it. The key is KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
Do whatever works good from your area. The good thing about using the lease and the sales contract is because you can use the standard realtor's lease in your area, and you don't have to worry really much about whether you have the right contracts or not, the right language in the lease or whatnot.
Yeah, you just use your state's lease agreement and purchase contract, and pretty much everybody knows what it is in that particular state. Okay, so we're coming close to the end here, and Joe, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, but you are coming out with a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
You excited?
I'm so excited about it. I am super excited. I'm learning up, and I love learning new things, and I've really been inspired with your podcast. I found yours a few months ago, and I've listened to almost all of them. and I don't think mine will be as good as yours.
Yeah, no.
But
no, you've got some unbelievable content, some great information, and
it'll be coming out soon.
I'll be your first subscriber.
Well, good, and leave me some good comments. It'll be called Wholesaling Lease Options. So
it's going to be called. Okay, wait a minute. So you're going to call it Wholesaling Lease Options. It's going to be a podcast. It will be in iTunes, right? Because you're going to submit it to iTunes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wholesaling Lease Options. Now, if someone here is listening to this and they want to find out more about you, what is the absolute best place they can go to get your blog or all the information from you?
Yeah, my website, wholesalingleaseoptions.com. www.wholesalingleaseoptions.com. I got some cool information on there. I have a forum that you can preview and look through.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm on your site right now, and it looks like if someone wants to go there right now, there's basically 4 free bonuses if people sign up for your just to be on your mailing list here, and it's you get an interview with Wendy Patton, who is how to wholesale lease options, and I'm probably going depth.
Yes.
How to find and hire and train a $2 an hour virtual assistant. Wow, that alone right there is priceless. And to report my favorite online tools.
I know guys who sell that. What I give them away for free for $500.
Oh yeah.
How to find, hire, and train a virtual assistant.
Yeah, that is something that's because think about it, people are a lot of people are listening to us have a full-time job, so what if they could leverage themselves and hire a full-time assistant to basically line up seller leads for you, pretty much, and do other aspects. You also have on here my favorite online tools that you probably never heard of, and then live seller calls. So people get to hear you with a seller, probably talking to them, which I think that would be so that's free. You give that away for free?
Oh, yeah. It's all free. You just put your name and email in there, and I give that away.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're listening right now, you can check out wholesalingleaseoptions.com. And this is Joe McCall's site, and on there you'll see on the right-hand bar under a video he produced about the 4 free bonuses. Definitely get those because that's a lot of content and a lot of value. And if anyone listens to my podcast or look at the blog, I am an advocate of giving away tons of great free information, and why Joe and I mesh so well when we ended up talking, because he has the exact same philosophy. And if you go to his blog and read his information, you'll see that he is an expert in the niche of wholesaling lease options. He's done incredibly well. He's phenomenally successful, and he's here to basically share his time and his information, his knowledge, to give us another tool in our toolbox to go out and accomplish our goals. And what's the goal? The goal is to quit your job in 19 weeks or less. The goal is to get 1 year's worth of income in the bank as fast as possible. And this little tool of wholesaling leased options gives you another avenue to be able to accomplish that quicker. And when I first talked to Joe on the phone and he kind of shared what his niche was, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I dove into his site and his information, and I've been impressed from day one. So Joe, I know you have to run to another call right now, and I definitely want to thank you for your time and for your expertise and knowledge and sharing it with the audience here. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. So I will. I'll put this up, and I can't wait to hear the response from everybody excited to wholesale lease options. So
okay, thanks a lot.
All right. Good luck on your next call. Take care.
All right. See you.
All right. Bye-bye. Wasn't Joe great? He's such a laid-back guy, which is awesome. He has some great information. And Joe, thank you so much for spending the time with us and sharing your strategies for wholesaling lease options. Now, if you want to get more from him, you can visit wholesalingleaseoptions.com. Like you said, he's coming out with a podcast. You can search that in iTunes. His goal is to have it released by the end of the year, so you want to definitely check that out, because I think, like I said in the interview, he has the same philosophies as I do, is give away some great content and help people out, and that's basically what he believes as well. So hope you like that. Now, if you want more from Flip to Freedom, and you want to download my 129-page comprehensive blueprint, you can visit flip2freedom.com. That's flip2freedom.com. wholesalinglease.com. You can see a video on the front page of me, enter your email address, and I will email you a link that you can download that report. Also, if you go on the site and you hit the podcast tab, you can see the other 27 episodes. If you really want to dig into what exactly flipping properties is and how to do it, I did a series recently, and it's called Fast Start to Your First Big Check, and it's a detailed step-by-step series. And what I do in that is I go through in detail, I mean more than you probably even want to know, of exactly how to flip properties in your spare time and get your very first big check. And I go through and how to, and that's in episodes 22, episodes 23, 24, 25 is how to close the deal, and that's it. So, and actually, it goes to number 26. My fault. So it ends at number 26. So those 5 episodes are how I go in depth on exactly how to do that. So until the next episode, I'll talk to you next week, and we will discuss some other great information to help you in your business so you can quit your job as fast as possible and live the lifestyle of freedom, because that's what it's all about. Take care, and God bless.